The door creaked open, and I froze, half naked in my childhood bedroom, my heart slamming against my ribs. I was 25, home for the summer in Syracuse, New York, and I thought I was alone. Until my dad's old friend, Marcus, stood in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock. "Elliot, I didn't know you were like this," he stammered, his voice cracking in a way that made my stomach twist. I clutched my shirt to my chest, my face burning. I'd been caught mid-change, but it wasn't just my bare torso that felt exposed. It was the truth I'd hidden for years, the truth I'd buried under fake girlfriends and forced laughs at family barbecues. Terrified of what my dad, a stoic auto mechanic with a love for football and beer, would say if he knew I was gay. Marcus, a 45-year-old carpenter with salt and pepper hair and hands rough from years of work, wasn't supposed to be here. He was my dad's best friend, the guy who taught me to throw a spiral and helped me build my first skateboard ramp. But now, his eyes weren't on me. They were on the small rainbow flag pinned to my bulletin board, a secret I'd kept tucked away in my room. "I'm sorry," I blurted, scrambling to pull on my shirt. "I didn't. Please don't tell Dad." My voice was a desperate whisper, the kind that comes when you know your whole world could collapse with one wrong word. Marcus didn't move. He just stood there, his broad shoulders filling the doorway, his face unreadable. Then quietly he said, "Elliot, I'm not going to tell him, but you need to, and I get it more than you think." His words hung in the air, heavy with something I couldn't quite grasp. I stared at him, my mind racing. What did he mean, he got it? Marcus, the guy who'd spent decades drinking beers with my dad, talking about carburetors and the Syracuse Orange, wasn't supposed to get this. But the way his eyes softened, the way his voice dropped low, told me there was a story he wasn't sharing. Not yet. That moment was the spark that set my summer ablaze. A summer that would unravel secrets, break hearts, and show me love in ways I never imagined. I'd come back to Syracuse after my first year teaching high school English in Brooklyn, needing a break from the city's chaos. My dad's house, a modest two-story with peeling blue paint, was supposed to be a safe haven. But being back in my old room, surrounded by posters of bands I didn't listen to anymore and memories of a closeted teenager, felt like stepping into a cage. The next morning, I avoided Marcus. I didn't want to face the man who'd seen my truth before I was ready to share it. But Syracuse is small, and our neighborhood even smaller. By noon, I ran into him at the corner deli, where he was grabbing a coffee and a pack of gum. "Elliot," he called out, his voice warm but cautious. "Can we talk?" I wanted to bolt, but something in his tone, gentle, almost pleading, made me stay. We sat at a wobbly table outside, the summer heat sticking to my skin. Marcus leaned forward, his calloused hands wrapped around his coffee cup. "I meant what I said yesterday. I'm not gonna out you, but I know what it's like to hide who you are." I frowned, my guard up. "What are you talking about?" He took a deep breath, his eyes flicking to the street where kids rode bikes and a dog barked in the distance. "When I was your age, I was in love. His name was David. We were everything to each other. But this was the 90s, and I wasn't brave enough to live out loud. I let him go, and I've regretted it every day since." My jaw dropped. Marcus, the guy who'd always been my dad's shadow, was gay? The revelation hit me like a freight train, shattering every assumption I'd made about him. He wasn't just my dad's friend. He was someone who'd lived through the same fear I was drowning in now. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shrugged, a sad smile tugging at his lips. "Your dad's a good man, but he's not ready for that conversation, and I didn't want to lose him. Or you." That night I couldn't sleep. Marcus's story churned in my mind, mixing with my own fears. I'd spent years dodging questions about my love life, lying to my dad about girls I was seeing in Brooklyn. But Marcus's confession made me wonder, could I be brave where he hadn't been? The next day, I met Javier at a local art fair. He was 27, with sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to see right through me, and a laugh that felt like sunlight. He was selling his paintings, vibrant abstracts that exploded with color, at a booth near the park. I stopped to admire one, a swirl of blues and golds that reminded me of the ocean, and he caught me staring. "You look like you're trying to solve it," he said, grinning. I laughed, caught off guard. "Maybe I am." We talked for hours, the conversation flowing like we'd known each other forever. Javier was Puerto Rican, raised in the Bronx, and had moved to Syracuse to care for his sick grandmother. He was open about being gay, unapologetic in a way that both terrified and inspired me. When he asked me out for coffee the next day, I said yes before I could overthink it. Our first date was at a tiny cafe downtown, where we shared a slice of cheesecake and stories about our lives. Javier's confidence was magnetic. He spoke about his art, his family, his dreams with a fire I envied. But when I mentioned my dad, my voice faltered. "He doesn't know," I admitted. "About me." Javier reached across the table, his hand brushing mine. "You'll tell him when you're ready. And when you do, you won't be alone." His words lit something inside me, a spark of hope, fragile but real. But as we left the cafe, I saw Marcus across the street, watching us. His expression was unreadable, and my heart sank. Had he seen us holding hands? Would he keep my secret? Or would this be the moment everything fell apart? The summer heat pressed against my skin as Javier and I walked through Syracuse's downtown, our shoulders brushing. His presence was electric, pulling me out of the cage I'd built around myself. But Marcus's face from across the street lingered in my mind, a shadow over the warmth of the moment. I didn't see Marcus again until the next weekend, when he showed up at our house for a barbecue. My dad was in his element, flipping burgers on the grill, his laughter booming across the backyard. I stuck to the edges, sipping a soda and avoiding Marcus's gaze. But he found me near the picnic table, away from the crowd. "Elliot," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the chatter. "That guy you were with, he seems good for you." I froze, my grip tightening on the can. "You saw us?" He nodded, his eyes steady. "I'm not judging. I want you to be careful. Your dad's not like me. He's got a temper, and he's set in his ways." His warning sent a chill down my spine. My dad, Tom, was a good man at heart, always there to fix a neighbor's car or coach Little League, but he'd never been open-minded. I'd heard him mutter about those people during news segments about pride parades, his voice thick with disdain. The thought of him finding out about me, about Javier, made my chest tighten. But Javier was a force I couldn't resist. We spent every spare moment together, exploring Syracuse's parks, sneaking kisses in the shadow of old brick buildings, and talking late into the night on his grandmother's porch. He told me about his childhood, about losing his parents young and finding solace in painting. I told him about my dreams of writing a novel, of escaping the weight of my dad's expectations. One night, as we lay on a blanket under the stars in a quiet field, Javier turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "Elliot, you can't keep hiding. Not from your dad, not from yourself. You're too bright for that." His words cut deep, exposing the fear I'd tried to bury. "What if he hates me?" I whispered. Javier took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "Then you'll still have me, and you'll still have you." The next day, I decided to test the waters. At dinner, I casually mentioned a gay colleague from my school in Brooklyn, watching my dad's reaction. His fork paused midair, and his jaw tightened. "Why's it always gotta be about that stuff?" he grumbled. Can't people just live their lives? My stomach sank, but I forced a smile. Yeah, just thought it was interesting. Marcus was at the table too, his eyes flicking between me and my dad. Later, as we cleaned up, he pulled me aside. Don't push him yet, he warned. He's not ready, but he loves you. That's something. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. Could love survive the truth? Javier, meanwhile, was planning an art show at a local gallery. A big step for his career. He asked me to help him set up, and I jumped at the chance to see his world up close. The gallery was a small, eclectic space in Syracuse's arts district, filled with his vibrant paintings. As we hung them, our hands brushing as we passed tools, I felt a freedom I'd never known. But the night of the show, everything shifted. The gallery was packed, the air buzzing with excitement. Javier was in his element, charming guests with his easy smile. I stayed in the background, proud but nervous, hyper-aware of every glance in our direction. Then I saw my dad walk in. My heart stopped. He wasn't supposed to be here. I hadn't invited him. But there he was, in his worn flannel, scanning the room. His eyes landed on me, then Javier, and I saw the moment he put it together. The way Javier's hand lingered on my arm, the way we looked at each other. Elliot, he called, his voice sharp. What's going on here? The room seemed to shrink, every eye on us. Javier stepped closer, his presence steadying me, but I couldn't speak. My dad's face was a storm cloud, and I knew this was the moment I'd been dreading. Marcus appeared beside my dad, his hand on his shoulder. Tom, let's talk outside, he said, his voice calm but firm. My dad shook him off, his eyes locked on me. No, I want to hear it from my son. The air was thick with tension, and I felt Javier's hand slip into mine, grounding me. I took a shaky breath, my heart pounding. Dad, I'm gay, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. And I'm with Javier. The silence that followed was deafening. My dad's face twisted, a mix of anger and confusion. He turned and stormed out, leaving me standing there, my world crumbling. Javier pulled me close, his voice soft. You did it. You were brave. But as I watched my dad disappear into the night, I wasn't sure if bravery was enough. The gallery's lights felt too bright, the chatter too loud. As I stood there, Javier's hand still in mine. My dad's exit left a hole in my chest, and I couldn't shake the image of his face. Betrayed, furious, lost. I wanted to run after him, to explain, but my feet wouldn't move. Javier squeezed my hand. Give him time, he whispered. He'll come around. I wasn't so sure. My dad wasn't the type to come around. He was stubborn, rooted in his ways like the oak tree in our backyard. But Marcus followed him out, and I clung to the hope that he could bridge the gap I'd just blown wide open. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at Javier's grandmother's house, unable to face my dad. Javier's abuela, Rosa, was a tiny woman with a sharp wit and a warm heart. She welcomed me like family, her small home filled with the smell of arroz con pollo and the sound of old salsa records. But even her kindness couldn't ease the ache in my chest. Javier tried to keep me grounded. We painted together in his cramped studio, our brushes moving in silence, the colors blending into something raw and beautiful. This is us, he said, pointing to a canvas streaked with gold and blue. Messy, but worth it. I wanted to believe him, but every unanswered call to my dad felt like a rejection. I kept replaying the gallery moment, wondering if I'd said too much, too soon. Then Marcus called. Meet me at the diner, he said, his voice gruff. We need to talk. I arrived at the old diner on Salina Street, its neon sign flickering in the evening light. Marcus was already there, nursing a coffee, his face lined with worry. I slid into the booth, bracing myself. "Your dad's struggling," he said, cutting straight to it. "He's angry, yeah, but he's more hurt than anything. He thinks he failed you somehow." "Failed me?" I echoed, stunned. "He's the one who walked out." Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. "Tom's got his own demons. Back in the day, he caught me and David together. Didn't speak to me for a year. He came around eventually, but he never knew I was gay. Just thought I was mixed up. He's scared of losing you the way he almost lost me." The weight of his words settled over me. My dad wasn't just angry, he was afraid. Afraid of a truth he didn't understand. Afraid of a son he didn't know how to reach. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Keep showing up," Marcus said. "Show him who you are. Not just the gay part, the whole you. The kid who loves books and bad puns and burns toast every morning." I nodded, but doubt lingered. Could I reach my dad without losing myself? The next day, Javier and I went to a pride event in downtown Syracuse. It was small but vibrant, with rainbow flags waving and music pulsing through the streets. Javier was radiant, dancing to a pop song with a group of kids, his laughter infectious. I watched him, my heart swelling, but I couldn't shake the fear that this joy was temporary. That night I went home. My dad was in the garage, tinkering with an old carburetor. The air was thick with the smell of oil and tension. I stood in the doorway, my hands shoved in my pockets. "Dad?" I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "Can we talk?" He didn't look up, but his hands stilled. "What's there to say, Elliot?" I took a step closer. "I'm still your son. I'm still the guy who watched every Super Bowl with you, who helped you fix this garage. I'm just also in love with someone. His name's Javier, and he makes me happy." My dad's shoulders tensed, but he didn't speak. I pressed on, my voice shaking now. "I don't want to lose you, but I can't hide who I am anymore." He finally looked at me, his eyes red. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't get it, but you're my kid. I don't want to lose you either." It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. I left the garage with a flicker of hope, knowing the road ahead would be long but not impossible. Summer in Syracuse rolled on, the days growing shorter but heavier with emotion. My dad and I existed in a fragile truce. Awkward conversations over breakfast, silences that said more than words. He hadn't mentioned Javier since our talk in the garage, but he hadn't shut me out either. It was progress, but it felt like walking on glass. Javier, meanwhile, was my anchor. We spent evenings on his grandmother's porch, planning his next art show and dreaming about a future where we didn't have to hide. He'd started painting a new piece, a portrait of me reading under a tree, my face soft with concentration. "This is how I see you," he said, his brush moving with quiet reverence. But the weight of my dad's unease lingered. I wanted him to meet Javier, to see the man who'd changed my life, but every time I brought it up, he changed the subject. Marcus, ever the mediator, kept encouraging me to give it time. "He's trying," he said one afternoon as we fixed a fence in the backyard. "He's just slow." Then came the night of Javier's second art show. It was bigger this time, held in a converted warehouse with exposed brick and soaring ceilings. Javier's paintings glowed under the lights, each one a piece of his soul. I was helping him set up when my dad walked in, unannounced, with Marcus at his side. My heart leapt into my throat. "Dad," I said, my voice barely audible over the hum of the crowd. He looked uncomfortable, his hands shoved in his pockets, but he was there. "Marcus said it was a big deal," he muttered. "Thought I'd see what the fuss is about." Javier appeared beside me, his smile cautious but warm. "Mr. Carter," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Javier." It's great to meet you. My dad hesitated, then shook his hand, his grip firm but brief. Yeah, nice to meet you too. The exchange was stiff, but it was something. As the night went on, I watched my dad wander the gallery, his eyes lingering on Javier's paintings. I saw him pause at the portrait of me, his expression unreadable. Marcus stood beside him, saying something I couldn't hear, and for the first time, I saw my dad's shoulders relax. After the show, Javier and I slipped onto the rooftop, needing a moment to breathe. The city sparkled below, and Javier pulled me close, his arms warm against the cool night air. Your dad showed up, he said, his voice soft with awe. That's huge. I nodded, my throat tight. Yeah, it is. But the moment of hope was short-lived. The next day, my dad cornered me in the kitchen. I saw the way you two looked at each other, he said, his voice low. I'm trying, Elliot. I am, but it's hard. I don't know if I can accept this. His words stung, but they were honest. I wanted to argue, to beg him to try harder, but I saw the pain in his eyes. He was fighting a battle I couldn't fully understand, torn between love for me and a worldview that didn't bend easily. I just need you to see me, I said finally. Not just the parts you're comfortable with. All of me. He nodded, but didn't speak. As I left the kitchen, I felt the weight of his struggle, and mine. The end of summer loomed, and with it, my return to Brooklyn. Javier and I had grown inseparable, our love a quiet rebellion against the uncertainties around us. But my dad remained a question mark, his efforts to understand me clashing with his discomfort. One evening, Marcus invited us all to his place for dinner. A neutral ground, he said, to talk things out. His small apartment was cluttered with woodworking tools and old records, a testament to a life lived quietly but fully. My dad, Javier, and I sat around his table, the air thick with unspoken words. Marcus broke the silence. Tom, I've known you for 30 years. You're stubborn as hell, but you've got a big heart. Elliot's your kid. Javier's his choice. Can you live with that? My dad stared at his plate, his jaw tight. I'm trying, he said finally. It's just different. I didn't grow up with this. Javier spoke up, his voice steady. Mr. Carter, I love your son. I'm not here to take him from you. I just want to be part of his life, and yours if you'll let me. The room was silent, the weight of Javier's words settling over us. My dad looked at me, then at Javier, and I saw something shift in his eyes. Not full acceptance, but a crack in the wall he'd built. I don't know how to do this, he admitted, but I don't want to lose my son. Tears stung my eyes, and I reached for Javier's hand under the table. You won't, I said. The dinner wasn't a fairy tale ending. My dad didn't suddenly embrace everything, but he listened. He asked Javier about his art, about his grandmother, about his life. It was awkward, halting, but it was real. As we left Marcus's apartment, my dad pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, he said, his voice rough. Not because of this, because you're you. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm trying. I hugged him, the first real hug we'd shared in months, and felt a weight lift. Javier and I moved to Brooklyn together that fall, sharing a tiny apartment filled with his paintings and my books. My dad visited once, his discomfort still there but softened by effort. Marcus came too, his own story a quiet pillar of strength for us all. In the end, it wasn't about my dad fully understanding or accepting everything. It was about love, messy, imperfect, but enduring. Javier and I built a life together, not because the world made it easy, but because we chose each other. And in that choice, I found the courage to be myself, to love out loud, and to believe that even the hardest hearts can soften with time.